Hello and welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people who do amazing things. And today I have Stephanie Joline, director of Night Bloom, super awesome human being, and someone that really knows how to use Instagram. Like, your Instagram is interesting. I'm going to talk about that later, but thanks for coming to the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I think we talked about my Instagram last time I was here.
Yeah, but like, since then, it's actually, I have to start with I started a Blackout Podcast as fun, as part of a project, whatever. But then I had this interview with you and it just became something else. So thank you for that. So now that I'm having this part 2, I'm thinking it's going to take it to the next level. So I'm already saying thank you for that. But yes, you're right. We did talk about your Instagram last time. But actually, since between then and now, like, it's even gone crazy. Yeah. And there's a funny thing you did, I don't know, just a couple of days ago, where you were like, you didn't even know people were following you. You had this screenshot of people that were following. Is it from Facebook? And you didn't even check.
Oh, that was
friend requests.
That was for friend requests from Facebook. Yeah. Do you ever go on and
No.
it says, do you have a Facebook?
Yeah, I do have
and
Facebook.
it just says, like, look at your friend requests. And it was just like so many, but it's not like they all popped in now. It's just I don't check them very often. So I like the oldest was like 5 years ago.
Jeez.
And I'm like, some of these people have probably passed away. And like,
Oh my God.
I thought of that. I was just like, are these people even still around? Do they still want to be my friend? Like, it was so long ago. But yeah.
Okay. Night Blooms. I saw clips from the film. Looks stunning.
Yeah,
and it's raw, like raw in it's real. It grabs in your throat and shakes you, but at the same time, so it's like you have this character that looks like I don't care about anything, but that attitude makes the film even more powerful. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, because she's so laid back. But
the main character, Carly.
Yeah, she's like, whatever. But like, there's so many friggin' things happening, and like one of the scenes I remember that struck me was in the, I guess, farmhouse with the guy, and they were getting high on the thing. What was? I've never, I was thinking it would be weed or whatever. What was that?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and we don't say where this film takes place. It does take place in the late 90s when I was a teenager. So it's not autobiographical per se, but there are a lot of parallel. Like, I definitely drew from personal experiences or influences from my teenage life. So when you grow up in a small town, and I don't want to say anything bad about Yarmouth because that's where I grew up and a lot of my family are still there and it's a lovely place and it's beautiful to visit.
And they shot Lighthouse there.
Yeah, they shot the Lighthouse there, exactly. But my experience growing up there, and I feel like I have to be careful when I say this because I think everybody can come from the same place and say that wasn't my experience of that town, right? Because everyone has different lives and experiences. For me, I just didn't have anything to do. I didn't play sports. So there wasn't, and we didn't have money. So it's not like I could take classes and all these things. So what else is there to do in a small town except go, out back and get high and and like break windows in cottages and just kind of get into trouble and stuff. So I put a lot of that in the movie. And I'm not trying to. And I did almost so in the scene you're talking about, they get high off air freshener.
How does that, like, you literally just do that? Like, how does that work? I didn't even know this is a thing till I saw that clip. I didn't know this. I guess...
then you went home and you're like, let me see if I have any air freshener around and see if we could have a party. No, I considered doing, so when I was a teenager, I was an idiot. And this was also pre-internet. So this is like, you don't Google, This was just like someone told me someone's cousin once got high off of inhaling the whatever cleaning product, and you go, maybe I'll try that. And I didn't think like maybe that could kill me or is that dangerous. I was just like, man, I'm kind of bored. I'll try. Like we would just hear about stuff that you could kind of get high on, and then we would actually try it because again, we were not smart people. So I was like, well, I'm gonna put that in the movie, and then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, because like I don't want to actually encourage people to try to get high off stuff that's dangerous. So then I was like, maybe I shouldn't. But then I was like, well, I'm not making a movie for kids. I'm making, it's kind of adult content. So I was like, okay, well, maybe by the time the adults are watching, the age that you are while you're watching this, hopefully you're not going to go, I'm not going to influence you to go get high off of air freshener or gasoline or cleaning products or like whatever else. So I ultimately decided to keep it in. But I heard writing advice once that said something like, the more personal you can make it, the more universal it will be or something, which seems like a contradiction. But I decided to go that way and like just went with personal experiences and seems to be resonating with people. A few people of my age have been like, oh yeah, that was me. That was me in high school. Like, I think it's kind of speaking to some people.
And okay, first let's rewind a bit. Why did you decide to make this film?
Why did I decide to make Night Blooms? I really wanted to make a feature film. I had a few ideas. I went to Mark Tetreault, and he and Jason Levangie produced the movie. And I went to Mark Tetreault and I said, hey, I want to apply for some telefilm funding to make a movie, and you can only do that like once a year. They do the telefilm intake. And I was like, I know the deadline's coming up and I don't want to wait another year. Let's just try it. And he's like, okay, what do you got? And I pitched him a few ideas that I had, and this was one of them. And he's like, that's interesting, because the Me Too movement was, just starting at the time. So there was a lot of conversations were being had about consent and, predatory behavior and things like that. So my movie, Night Blooms, explores this relationship through the protagonist, Carly, who's 17 years old, and she has an affair with her friend's father. She sleeps with her friend's father, who's in his 40s. So again, this takes place in the 90s, which I think makes it different. Right now, I think it would be very black and white. Not good, but in the 90s, things were a little bit different than they are now, as far as what people thought about consent and age differences in relationships. But I didn't want to hit it on the head with like, he's a predator, he's a villain, she's an innocent victim, and that's the dynamic. Because I felt like, especially at that time with, Me Too movement and these conversations being had, which I'm very supportive of. I'm a feminist, and I'm very like, women should be believed and women should be heard. And I'm very much on that side of the conversation. But I think that there is some like really interesting stuff in the kind of murkiness of consent, because in this story, she is consenting. She pursues him. So not to say that I also didn't want to make her the villain. I didn't want it to be like a Lolita, like she's some, seducing him and he is a victim. Like I didn't want it to be that way either. I just wanted it to be like awkward and murky and gray in an area, in a world where we really don't like gray areas. We really want
it has
black
to be
and white. You just tell me what's good and what's bad. Who's the villain and who's the hero? And that's how we're comfortable, I think, now more than ever in our society. And I was like, well, making a story about a younger woman and an older man where she's the victim would be so easy to write. Not to say that those stories aren't important. Of course they're important. They should be told. But like for me, I was like, that would be what everyone kind of expects. So like maybe if I make it a little messier, I feel like that's a little bit more interesting. So that's what I did.
Yeah, it's super messy. She gets arrested also.
Yeah, and that's not for the seducing. That's not for the relationship.
Right.
Also, she gets arrested. That I will say, there's a scene in the movie where Carly gets arrested because she pawns. She has like some sketchy friends, and her friends are like, "You should pawn this for me," and she's like, "Is it stolen?" And they're like, "No, of course it is." So then she gets called in class, gets called to the principal's office, and she goes into the principal's office where there's a police officer. And the police officer is like, we believe you stole some items from this house that was broken into. And she's like, what are you talking about? Turns out the stuff she's pawned for her buddy, of course, was stolen from some house. So they think she broke into the house and stole it. And in the scene, she like refuses to give it up. She's like, I know who gave it to me, but like, I'll never tell, because I'm not a rat, So she gets arrested. And in the scene, they arrest her and they take her down the hallway of high school just as the bell rings and all of the students come out to see her being arrested.
That was, it's weird watching that scene now.
Okay.
Because of COVID.
I didn't think that's where you were going to go.
Yeah. I remember watching that. I was like, oh, yeah, you shot it a while ago.
We shot it pre-COVID. Yeah, that's true. You could tell there, yeah.
Yeah.
But that scene is one of the only scenes that's directly from my life.
Wait, you were arrested?
That exact thing happened to me. I got arrested in high school. I have this memory, and it is like one of the most badass memories. Not that I'm like, getting arrested is cool, but I really thought I was cool. Like, I wasn't like, oh no, my life's over. I was crying. I was just like, I am the coolest kid in school right now. And they did. The same thing happened, except here's the difference, that I made the movie cooler. Because in the movie, Carly's like, I'll never tell. In real life, I'm like, oh, I'll just tell you his name. I was like, I'll just rat out these people. Like, I wasn't cool like Carly. But in real life, it did happen where I just said, I'll tell you his name or whatever. But they still took me down to the station. So they did actually, they put my hands behind my back. The only time I've ever been arrested.
Holy shit.
Handcuffed me. Took me down the hall. And I swear to God, the bell rings. And I'm in high school. And it's a small town, as I mentioned, so everyone knows everybody.
Everybody knows
and this isn't the kind of
everybody.
thing that happens every day in our high school. So I'm like being, walked down the hall like this. There was actually 2 police officers in real life, but of course, low budget movie, we cut it down to 1.
Yeah.
And they walked me through, and I was like this, and I had my head held up high, and everyone was coming out, and it was like a movie scene. And I remember thinking, this is like a movie scene. And everyone's coming out of class going like, oh my gosh. Like nobody knew. Some people were laughing. Some people were like, scared. They didn't know what was going on. And I was just like, I am the queen of high school. Because I didn't try to be popular in high school. I wanted to be a freak. I wanted to be the thing people were talking about. I wanted to like reject them.
Why?
I don't know, like psychologically why. I mean, therapists would probably say because if I rejected them, they couldn't reject me. Probably. But I love like I liked it when people were scared of me a little bit. They were like, oh God, she's cool. She's kind of scary. She got arrested. Like I was kind of known for that. Even though like I wasn't violent, I wasn't mean. Yeah. Like I certainly wasn't a bully. I didn't bully other people or anything like that. But there was something about it that was, and I told the producers, I'm like, this has to be, like I was so specific about what that scene looked like. And they're like, it's because it's directly from your life. I'm like, yes, it has to be exactly like it was in my memory. So.
Wow. Okay. So the process of making this, you reach out to Mark and Jason.
Yeah, so let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I pitched them the ideas that I had. And like I said, so Me Too kind of conversation was happening. So it was being had at the time. So Mark Tetreault thought, oh, well, that's an interesting take, from that story. And he's like, a man couldn't tell that story. Like you telling that story and kind of having kind of real life, being a teenager at that time, is very interesting. So he's like, let's pitch that one to Telefilm. So I had it as a kind of a treatment sort of written. So I went back to it and like rewrote it and changed the names. Because in the original script, it was just like my name, my friends' names. Like it was like I kind of based them on real life characters. I was like, I can't do that. So I had to change everyone's names and actually dramatize it more and like make stuff up and stuff like that. So that it wasn't just like, here's an example of things. Though? Sorry?
Did you know what the ending would be?
Well, you don't know what the ending is. You haven't seen
the
whole film yet. Yeah.
No.
Did I know at that time what the ending would be? No. Except I will say this. I really like endings where nobody wins. Do you kind of know what that... Is that my phone ringing? Do you kind of know what that what I mean by that. Like, I don't like happy endings.
You're not Hollywood.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I like I'm just trying to think about how to I'm gonna get this wrong when trying to explain it, but I think there's like 4 different options for endings. It's like the hero, the protagonist of your story can at the end get what they want and what they need. So you know how like characters through your stories, they should have a want and a need. And they often don't even know what the need is, but you know, you figure that out through the story. So at the end, it's like the character can either get what they want and what they need. Happiest ending. You get what they want but not what they need. Sad-ish ending, right? So I like it when characters don't get what they want or what they need. So I like it when all the characters in the stories fail to some degree. Yeah. I feel like I shouldn't like give away the ending, but I guess that's not really giving away anything.
Yeah, no, that's not giving away.
It's not the happiest. And I've shown the film a couple times. We haven't shown it very much. So it's going to be playing in Halifax in April. First time we played here, this is where we shot it, and this is where most of the cast and crew are. So that's exciting. But we have played a few festivals, and when I've done Q&As, it's like because I'm kind of like happy. You know? I'm like, hey, thanks for coming to the movie.
And
but the
like,
movie is so sad. And it's like, it's awkward and sad and hard to watch at times. And then towards the end, it gets really, some sad stuff happens. And then it's like, okay, cut to credits. And then I'm like, so, how's everyone doing? And like people are like, oh my God, like my vibe and the movie's vibe, like, I don't think really match. Like, so is everyone ready to party? And they're like, no, I want to go home and kill myself. So it's kind of funny, but what can I say? I guess I just don't like happy endings. I don't know.
Okay, well, they're also kind of powerful though, because it forces you to think and be like, you know, what would I do in that situation? Would I do this? Would I do that? But okay, you know, I say as a director, if you get your cast correct, like if you do like the casting, if you get it just right, like 80% of your work is done. And I think you did it here without Carly. Like, you know, I don't want to say she's you or whatever, but she embodies that character. Like you can believe this person is living that life that they're living in this
she's a good actor.
Place that she's in. Did you know you were going to use her, or did you have a casting call?
Casting call, yeah, and we auditioned a lot of people.
I can imagine, yeah.
A lot of people. And yeah, Jessica Clement is her name, who plays Carly, the lead in the film, and she is from Ontario. And she's going to come down to Halifax for our screening, though, which is going to be cool. That's really a testament to how good she is as an actor, because she is not like that at all in real life. Like, that is so not her personality. She is so bubbly. She's probably like the most bubbly person I've ever met. Like, she is just like, hey, and she's like, she brings like cupcakes and cookies to set every day, and she's like, hey everyone, like she's so happy and excited. And then it's like action, she's just like, yeah, getting high off her air freshener and like smoking her cigarettes. And she's like not that character. So it's cool. Even if people play something similar to themselves, I'm still impressed, because you know it's when you're good on screen, it's cool to see. But I was like, wow, she's really not this character. She can really go, you know, somewhere else. Which
what
is
part,
very
like,
impressive.
I guess you wrote the film. What part in the film did you know you're going to use when it came to your casting?
Like just the scenes I chose?
Right.
I don't remember. It's been almost 3 years
That is
since
the
we
other
started
thing. How did
shooting
you
the
feel
movie.
sitting down on this film that long? Like,
I was so annoyed so many times through the process of this, because we started filming almost 3 years ago, so pre-COVID. We had the film finished. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of how all this works, but the film was finished, but there was a little bit of funding that was meant for additional footage, like kind of reshoots. I had a couple scenes we were going to add. So we were playing around with how we were going to schedule that, and then COVID hit. But we couldn't scrap. We couldn't just say, never mind, we're not going to do the reshoots. So we had to wait. So we waited for a year of nothing. So the movie wasn't even done. It was just almost done. So that was annoying. And then when COVID sort of started letting up a little bit, then like restrictions and stuff started to get lifted a bit. The DP and one of our producing buddies, Tim Umbercat, they actually flew to Ontario, where Jessica lived, and I directed over Zoom. And they filmed the scene where she's talking on the phone.
Right.
To the guy she's trying to have sex with. And then they flew to LA, where Nick Stahl lives, who plays the man. And they filmed the other side of the conversation with him.
Holy shit.
And I directed that over Zoom.
That's so expensive.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous, and it shouldn't ever be done that way, but it's COVID, and there was no other way we could do it, and we had to put that funding towards the shoot. And
how long was each day of shooting?
The days? The days were standard 12-hour days.
Fuck me.
Yeah.
So. How was it like for you sitting down on the screen and just looking? I mean, how was that?
The editing?
No. Like directing them through Zoom and stuff.
Oh, those days. Sorry, I thought you meant every day.
Oh, no, just the Zoom days.
The Zoom days were a little shorter. I don't remember how long they were. I have a bad memory, if you can't tell. I don't remember how long they were, but they weren't 12, but they were less than 12 for sure, because it was kind of like one scene in each, and then we added a little bit of B-roll. Like we added a few things to make up the day, but yeah. So that's another thing that took a while, and then we were able to edit, and so throughout COVID, finished the editing, and then there's color and sound design and all the stuff you have to do after picture lock. So for all of those reasons. The film has taken a long time to come out, but I still think it's relevant. I still think it's a story that a lot of people, I think it's so far, especially women around my age, have been the most receptive to it, and they're like, "Oh, I see myself. That's me." Did
you have to do that marketing thing? Did you say that's who the audience the film was for? Like,
the test screenings. Yeah, we did one test screening.
How was that?
It went well, and I didn't go. So we did it.
Why wouldn't you go?
We didn't go because we didn't want anyone to know whose movie it was. So we invited people, like not friends, family, no one who knew what the movie was about, and we kind of got, me and Jason and Mark, the producers, we kind of like reached out to be like friends of friends, like, hey, can you bring a couple people from your, not film industry people, like, hey, you're a nurse, can you bring some nursing friends or whatever, and like, don't tell them it's a friend of a friend's movie, right? So we kind of got people to come in that didn't really 100% know what they were watching. They didn't know it was a local movie. They probably figured it out when they started watching, but we took the credits off so you didn't know who directed it, because we wanted honest feedback, because that's a complaint I have about, I think we talked about this last time, that's a complaint I have about this industry. Your friend is gonna
be like, oh, it's good.
Yeah, and I love that people in Nova Scotia are so supportive, because like that's not a bad thing, that's not a bad problem to have about the place. People are too nice around here. It's not a bad problem. Yeah. But unfortunately, I think it holds some people back creatively, because everything you do, everyone loves. It's, how like the stereotype of your parents will be like, oh, you're great, even because they can't see it for what it is. They see it as they're so proud of you. Right. And I think there's some similar feelings with friends and family, as well as just our community. Because I know when I go see a local movie, I want to like it. So I go in immediately like, there's already a bias there. I already have a bias, and I want my friends to succeed, and I'm like, great job. But if you're looking for real harsh criticism, which I was like, give me the real feedback. Give me I hate this movie. This makes no sense. I wanted to walk out. Give me the real stuff. Because like, if, 60-70% of the people that were there all really hated one character, all really hated like, this scene really pissed me off or whatever, then I'd not necessarily have to change it, but at least I would be like aware, okay, I wonder why that is. Maybe I could push it in this direction or push it in that. Because my big question for the test screening was like, do you hate either character? Because I didn't want everyone to hate the Wayne character, and I didn't want everyone to hate the Carly character. So I wanted to make sure it was a little bit more, I kind of didn't like either of them, but I was a little more on her side or a little more on his.
There's a scene talking about that. There's a scene where Wayne comes in and kind of like acts like this hero, like this other, I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah,
it's a stepfather or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But like, you know, when there's a show, there's a show on Netflix, and if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's called Arcane.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing because I think that's kind of like the feel I get from Night Bloom. Like, it's not about good or bad. It's just like people that are doing things for reasons. And it might not make sense to you.
A really good description
of
like what movies or TV shows should be.
To
people
me,
doing things for reasons.
Yeah, to me, it makes all the sense in the world while I'm doing this. And like, because the very first, I don't know if that's the first time. I think that scene I saw was the first time she saw the guy. Like, that was the first meeting she saw when.
No, it wasn't the first time they meet.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe I didn't send you the clips in the right order then. Maybe.
Oh, okay. Because like I remember the way she looked at this guy, I was like, oh boy.
By then they had already slept together.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when I was watching, I was like, you kind of like, you don't have to like it, you don't have to whatever, but you understand it while you're doing it, and that's what I loved about the clips I've seen so far from Night Blooms.
Thank you. That's 100% what I'm trying to do when I make, because I said we talked about this last time too, but my big thing for filmmaking and writing is I really like believable characters. I care so little about the story and the concept and the overall theme. Like, that's a problem. That's stuff I have to work on being better at, because all I do is think about character motivations and why people do this, why they don't do that. In real life, I find it so interesting.
It's
like
super
psychology of
fascinating,
why people do stuff, because everybody has a reason for doing things. Like, the most hated, evil people in the whole world that are villains, the best villains as far as character goes, are the ones that you go, I can understand the motivation. Like, I hate them, but I do understand the feeling of being alone, or I do understand the feeling of needing to be powerful, or I do understand the feeling of being embarrassed, or like these really relatable feelings. And we can look at that character on screen and go, I would never do that.
Right, yes.
But I understand loneliness, right? And so I can kind of see if you were desperate enough, you could go that direction. I still think he made the wrong choice, but... And it's so much more interesting than, here's a character who's evil and he wants world domination, and you go, give me a break. That's not a motivation for a person. But people doing things for reasons is exactly what I want to see when I'm watching.
Yeah, like I don't have to like your reason, but I totally get it. I totally get it. And like, what's Breaking Bad, you get it. Like, after a while, it's like, okay, this guy is just doing it for himself now. But for a point to like understand it, and that's what this show, if you haven't seen it, is funny enough, is animation, but every character, even like the tiny side characters, all their motivations like make sense.
What show?
Arcane. It's actually from a video game. I don't play.
Okay.
I don't know what.
Cool. No, that sounds like good writing.
League of Legends. It's like the video game, but then they took these characters from the video game and they made this show. And it's so short, you can watch it in like an afternoon.
Oh, cool.
It's like 8 episodes or 9 episodes. Like, I've seen it twice. It's really good. And that's the vibe I get from and I'm only seeing clips and I'm like, okay, so let's talk about the premiere. You have this whole after party plan. Of course, man.
Yeah.
You are such a show person. Like, everyone is like, come see my film. Thank you very much. Go home. You're like, no. You have to come to the party. I'm going to play drums. And like, where did this idea come from?
I'm like, more me.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on this movie for 3 years, so it's all about me. I was joking that I was going to tell people, I'm like, I'm never going to get married again. I was married once. I'm never going to get married again. So this is like my wedding. So if you would come to my wedding, come to this, which is, I'm joking, obviously. But it is still going to be, I'm still like very excited about it. Because I play drums. I used to play drums in bands, and I don't really do that much anymore, but I love it. I wish I did. That's the thing I wish I was the most, is I wish I was a professional musician, but I'm not, and that's okay. But I put together this. Well, I've been playing in this cover band for the last couple of years for fun with some friends of mine. So we are all going to do a set of like 90s songs, some songs from the movie. And we threw in some more songs. So it's going to be a pretty short set, like 25-ish minutes. But yeah, the after party is April 10th at the Seahorse. So that's the Sunday. So the movie opens on April 8th and it plays for a week. So people can come out, opening weekend would be great if people came out on opening weekend. And then on Sunday, come to the after party at the Seahorse. Yeah.
And like, so you have that set. Are there going to be other people playing, or?
No, we're just I considered that if we should have other entertainment, but I think it's just going to be like kind of a party. Like we're all going to catch up and hang out because there's going to be a lot of cast and crew there, but it is open to anyone. It's not just like a private party. So,
and like you mentioned that if you had the ticket from the show, you can just come in, or?
Yeah, you can just come in for free. And also, if you didn't see the movie, you can probably just come in for free. But I put that on the poster to hopefully make people go to the movie too. But if you just come in with no ticket stub, we'll still let you in. Just come anyway.
Oh man! So Night Blooms is finally done. One question I usually ask myself in my head, and like other people that create stuff, how did you know? Yeah, it's done. This is it. I'm not going to edit anything. We're not adding anything anymore. This is it. Especially since you had all this time.
That's a lot of time to do it. I don't know. I think it's done. And then you just sit on it for like a week and you go back and you go, no, let's cut this down a bit more. Like you I think it's just like giving yourself time to sit on it and then go back and rewatch and then sit on it, go back and rewatch. And now I'm like, maybe we should have cut out another scene. Like, so I don't think it'll ever be done. Like in a way, if it was up to a filmmaker, then they'd probably go forever.
Things.
Yeah, and I know people like this, like musicians and filmmakers that just like years and years and years later, they're like, I'm still not ready to release it. You're like, okay, it's your art. You do what you want.
How long is the film?
An hour and a half. Yeah, an hour and 38, I think. So just over an hour and a half.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I tried to get it to exactly an hour and a half. Didn't.
Okay, so it's done. This version of it is done at least. People can go see it and then come party with you and your band. Are you writing something? Gonna make something anytime soon? Looking at making something?
Yeah, so I'm just finishing a documentary. It's like it's a half-hour TV documentary on Rebecca Thomas, a local poet, author, activist. So it's a half-hour TV documentary on her. She's Mi'kmaq, so she doesn't speak Mi'kmaq because her father went to residential school and lost his language there. So she is a writer and a poet and communicates very much with words, but is reclaiming that part of her life, her language.
Right.
So that's a documentary.
What's it called?
Words Matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How did this come about?
I pitched it. I had it as an idea and I pitched it to a few places. I pitched it to CBC and they said yes. So
you kind of have a relationship with her, or how did you
with Rebecca? No, actually, I heard her on. I just knew who she was from afar, and a friend of mine, Tara Thorne, has a podcast called The Tideline, and Rebecca was on that podcast, and I really liked her on it. And I asked Tara, I was like, is she cool? Because she seems a little scary. Like she's so smart and very like she has strong opinions. So I was just like, is she gonna like be mad at me if I asked to make a documentary about her or not? And she was so nice. She was so welcoming, and she's like trusted me with the filmmaking part. And she has since seen the movie and she liked it a lot. So that's good. But I didn't know her. I just thought it was a really cool person.
Right.
And I was just like, this is a great story and I'd like to make a documentary about her. So I asked her for her permission. She said yes. And then I pitched it to CBC. So that's going to air on CBC, I think, this summer. I don't know the exact date.
Right.
So that's what I'm
How long
finishing
did
up
you
right
take to make that Well, at least the shooting part.
We shot for 8 days total.
Mm.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. It's cool.
You made that film where you actually went in the hospital. Documentary. The where you actually ended up in the hospital. It's not Wind Talker. Spirit Talker. Is it Spirit Talker?
Oh yeah. Spirit Talker. Yeah. Yeah, I just got nominated for a Canadian Screen Award for.
See, you just mentioned it in passing.
I know.
Like, oh, by the way.
I know, it seems like it's a very braggy thing to be like, oh, the Canadian Screen Award nomination.
Man, like, okay, see, here's the thing.
Yeah.
You did the work, right? I mean, Jesus, you were in the hospital, actually.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I thought you meant I did a documentary about hospitals.
No. You were literally in the hospital.
When I was filming that show, and that was a couple years ago now, but we were filming that. It's a documentary series on APTN. I fell in my hotel room, tripped getting into the bathtub like an old lady or something, and I tripped and smashed down on my leg and couldn't walk, and went to the hospital and couldn't walk for just had crutches for a few weeks. It wasn't broken, but it was damaged. So. And then directed the rest of the show on crutches.
Yeah. So you put in that work. Okay,
yeah, so I deserve the award, the nomination after all that trauma I went through.
You've done documentary, you've done now Night Blooms, like this fiction. You've done short film and all this stuff. Do you prefer one to the other? Real life versus make shit up?
Yeah, I would prefer doing more like narrative drama more. I really like doing both, of course, and I always love opportunities coming my way. So, please hire me for things. But there's something about drama that's just it's so freeing because with a documentary, I feel like I'm viewing someone else's story, and I'm going to do my best to tell their story the way I feel it should be told, or with respect and understanding and compassion. But I feel like my job is different as a director, as a documentarian. That's how I feel like my approach is. But then a drama like Night Blooms, it's just this is me. I could just go crazy.
Are you always going to make movies about snippets of your life, or is this going to be a thing now?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. Although, I have 2 more features that I'm working on. 3 more. Oh my goodness. 3 more features. That's crazy. But I do. I have a time travel movie that I've been working on for a few years.
So is it going to be the bigger version of?
Kind of. Yeah, okay. So I have a short called Play, Rewind, Play.
Yeah.
That I did a few years ago, and it's like near future time travel, earthly sci-fi, I think is the genre they call it. Kind of, it takes place in the same universe as that. It's a psychological thriller. Time travel movie. Okay. So but time travel is my favorite thing ever. So
why?
I just love it. I'm just obsessed.
Cause your film is sort of time travel-y,
Yeah, because we're going back. It takes place in the 90s. Right. Yeah. There's something about I just think time is so interesting. How time works. How we don't understand how it works. Why does it move forward, not backwards?
Yeah.
Why can we not figure out
how to
not only not go backwards, but we can't even slow it down. We can't adjust it. We can't fast forward it. I find it so cool that we just don't know. So I love the idea of just fucking with it and going and bending it and doing stuff like that. Just from a story perspective, I think it's so interesting. But yeah, so I have that Mike Volpe is the producer of it. I'm co-producing and writing, directing. So hopefully we get that made. We don't have. We're not planning to go to camera yet, but we're trying to get that one made. And then I have optioned a book. So my great-grandmother, her name was Elizabeth Gowdy. She's a Inuit from Labrador. And she wrote and published a book called Woman of Labrador. And it was about her life living off the land.
I've seen an Instagram post you put up that, I think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So that's my great-grandmother's book. I've optioned that book to turn that into a feature film. So I'm writing that script.
Oh, I mean, I've not read the book, but it seemed more like these are these people that live there. How are you going to make that into a film?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is sort of it's about her life. She actually wrote the book as just like keeping history written down to pass along to her children and their
Right,
children. That's
yeah.
why she had it. And then a publisher heard about it and approached her to publish the book. So she wasn't an author. She wasn't really an educated woman at all. She was just writing this stuff down for her children. But it has since been published. There have been several editions published. There's a play called Woman of Labrador based on the book that toured Canada several times. A song of the same name was written by and covered over the years. The NFB made a documentary back in the 90s, I think, about it, or the 80s, called Family of Labrador. So it's a story that's been told and retold. And I think the thing about that story that is kind of keeps people coming back is it's how she was living off the land, but very much like about resilience and family values. And she was like a very strong woman and very like, had the death of a couple of her children to live through, and just like these sad stories about digging a grave to put your dead kid in there, and it takes you 3 days to dig the grave because the ground's frozen, and like it's just these things you read and you're like, oh my gosh, like this was just a couple generations ago, and this is how people live.
If everything lines up, do you have to shoot it there, or?
Yeah, I think we would be shooting it in Labrador for sure. I feel like it would be disrespectful to Labrador not to shoot it there.
I can't even imagine it. Yeah. I watched this, I guess documentary about this guy that decided to cycle across Canada. And then there's this like ice bridge up there. It's like in this winter, in the summer, it's kind of like, it's in winter, it becomes this frozen huge slab of ice, and then I'm also watching this, and how do people live there? But then they figured out how to fish how to like
ice fishing and stuff.
It's insane how people. It's resilience. Yeah, that's the word.
Resilience is the word I keep going back to because I lived in Labrador for a year when I was a teenager because a lot of my family are still there. So my mother's from Labrador and a lot of my family still live there. So my grandmother, the author's daughter, the author I just mentioned was my great-grandmother. My grandmother is Grace Hope, and she helped raise me. She had a big hand in raising me when I was growing up in Yarmouth, and then she moved back to Labrador, and I moved with her for about a year. I stayed there, and then I came back to Nova Scotia. So I got a little taste of kind of what Labrador is like, but it's an interesting landscape. And I know that the people of Labrador are very proud of Labrador, and it's an interesting place for a story to be told, and there haven't been a lot of stories told there, in film. So I would like to do that someday, but that's down the road.
The logistics of that, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the logistics of that, and it's like, it's going to be insane.
It's going to be a big one, and I'm writing it knowing that. Okay. Because most of the stuff, like Night Blooms, I'm writing Night Blooms thinking, how can we do this with barely any money? Like, it's small. It's a small movie. And even my time travel movie is kind of a small movie because it's more psychological thriller. It's not like flying cars and stuff. It's like, more character-based. And then this is the movie maybe we'll make after that, which would be a much bigger film. So I would have to bring on like co-producers and maybe get us, some names and stuff because it would be taking place in the winter with like dog sleds and like snowstorms. I mean, so it's not a small movie. So I'm writing for the first time a big movie because I usually write very small, tiny things.
What is the third one then?
Yeah, the third one is a story called Non-Status that I haven't talked about yet. Ooh.
Hello!
You're getting the exclusive.
I'm always getting exclusive.
And this is sort of more back to me, my personal again, because so I grew up, so my mother is Indigenous and my dad is French, from French Acadian. I grew up in this small town with my grandmother being very close to me and my aunts and uncles very much look Native. And I just assumed I also did. Looked like that, and everyone in the small town that I grew up in knows who my family are. So there was some racism and some things said here and there about being Native or whatever. And then leaving Yarmouth and then coming to Halifax, people would go, "Oh, you're Native or you're Indigenous? You don't look it." And so I found I've always been I've always had an issue with identity in that way. Because I grew up in the culture I've been a member of the Native Council of Nova Scotia. My mother's on the board of the Native Council of Nova Scotia. I grew up with, my grandmother making moccasins, and like I learned how to make dream catchers at a very young age. So that's always been a part of my culture. But I've also benefited from white privilege my whole life because I look like a white person. So like I don't consider myself a person of color, and I do kind of consider myself a white person, but I am also Indigenous. So like I have this, where do I fit in? What am I allowed to claim and not claim? As far as it's a sticky area, and it's a sticky conversation to have, and I think it's a conversation that people are afraid to have right now. And I am not status Indian, as they say. I'm not even First Nation. I'm Inuit, which is a different thing. But growing up, people would be like, well, are you Native? Are you status or not? Like that was this thing that meant you were legit or not legit. And now, in the last few years, people have claimed to be Indigenous and they're not.
Like the lady, it was a big thing. You've seen CBC, I think.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, her, and there was a
yeah, she made this show that was kind of like Indigenous people, but she wasn't. And it was this big show, and then she had to go, and then the show was canceled. It's kind of weird that they canceled the show, though.
I don't know what the right thing to do is, to cancel or not cancel.
No, they should not cancel. Like, yes, she developed it, but just like
because they're giving jobs to Indigenous actors, and
I know,
right? So you're kind of punishing people that weren't doing anything wrong, like canceling the show.
Right,
yeah, I know.
Right, yeah. I'm like, no.
But then is it tainted? Is it like, yeah, but this was created by somebody who doesn't know that. They pretended to know that life or not. I mean, I don't even know if she was pretending or not, because there's some debate about, she's like, I really did think I was told that was my family background. Turns out it wasn't. So like maybe she was actually legit misunderstanding what her family background was. I don't know. Or maybe she completely made it up. I don't know this person, and I'm not trying to bash her, but like we've seen that happen a few times where people either are misunderstanding, like making a real mistake about their background, or they straight up are checking a box that they know they don't belong in because they want to get more funding or whatever. So like that happens, pisses me off when that happens, of course. But because you're taking money away from people, taking funding and opportunities away from people that it was allocated for. So I've danced around. I've gone back and forth in my own mind about. But
isn't that case though? Why do you think you struggle with it? Like, because you look the way you do.
Yeah, I've had this conversation before. And people, my mother's like, "No, we're Indigenous though." Like, there's no, and I'm really lucky because of my great grandmother's book I just mentioned. I actually have
proof.
And like it's, you can go online and read all about her Inuit culture, right? Yeah. So like I'm like, look, I can really point to where I come from.
Yeah.
But for a little while, I didn't know if I didn't have it in my bio, so I have a bio written like Stephanie's a filmmaker, blah 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 blah. And then a friend of mine was like, why don't you say an Indigenous filmmaker? And I was like, well, I mean, it's true, I am, but is it like if I say Indigenous, shouldn't I also say and part French? Like, why would I be claiming one part of my culture and not the other?
Because you're more one, like, from what you're saying, that's kind of, like, that's really where you grew up, right?
But I was raised most of my life by my dad, who's French, right? And I went to a French school, and, like, and I'm also proud of being French Acadian. Like, I'm proud of both. But, like, so I've always sort of been like, I don't know.
So what is non-status going to be exactly?
Oh, yeah, I forgot that's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So that was the idea.
Yeah.
And then non-status is a young woman. I have her in her early 20s right now. And she grows up next to a reserve, but not on a reserve. So her, like me, has one parent that's white, one parent that's Indigenous, and she looks very white. And she lives with her cousin, who has the same one parent Indigenous, one parent white, but looks very, presents more Native. And so the where do I belong, kind of where do I fit in, and all the friends being from the reserve nearby who all are status Natives, and like her not really fitting in with that culture. And so I have, it goes pretty, I'm just still just at the beginning stage of creating that, so I don't want to get too. But it gets pretty dark. There's some like there's a white police officer that comes to town, is stationed in town, and she starts to have a relationship with him, which really divides her from her culture even more. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of the the messy
but like, of
world.
all these 3 films you're working on, that one looks like the most likely the next one you'll make.
Well,
Like, of all the 3.
I hope my time travel movie gets made. Because I've been writing that for years.
The time travel one.
Yeah.
But you've sat down on Night Blooms this long, so you know.
You never know. You never know.
Okay, so Night Blooms comes out April 8th.
April 8th, it starts in Halifax. It'll be playing for a week. If you can come out opening weekend, that would be awesome. And then on Sunday, April 10th, come on over to the after party at the Seahorse.
Come party and see you playing drums and stuff.
Can I say something before we're finished about? So the first time we did this, you put it out in 2 parts. It was like Stephanie's interview, part 1 and part 2, and I thought it was so funny because part 1 came out, and it got like a lot of views on YouTube. It was like over 1,000 or something, and I was just like, oh my God, people love me. And then part 2 came out, and it was like 100 views. And I was like, never mind.
No, people love you. People love you.
But it was a nice like ego boost, and then immediately take it back down. When nobody watched part 2, everyone was like, no, we've seen part 1. We don't need to see any more of her.
This is not going to be chopped up, I can assure you that. It's going to come out in one whole bloop. And
it's funny.
I personally can't wait to see Night Blooms because I've just seen clips, and I just want to say thank you for creating, and I can't see the next thing you create.
Thanks. I hope you come to the movie and come to the Seahorse, and we'll all hang out and talk about it.